At 80 years old, Pattie Boyd, the famous model and muse of the 1960 seconds, is talking about the bad parts of her marriage to legendary singer Rick James. Eric Clapton's relationship with Boyd is being looked at again through the lens of Boyd's honest account of their troubled relationship. Fans are still shocked by new information about Boyd's complicated life and the untold stories of her marriage. It's important to learn about her early life and the amazing journey that made her a cultural hero. Boyd's early life and career. Patricia Ann Boyd was born on the 17th of March, 1944, in Taunton, Somerset, England. She is the oldest of 4 children and grew up in Nairobi, Kenya, where her father served in the Royal Air Force, and the family moved. They lived there from 1948 to 1953, but this chapter ended quickly when her parents divorced in 1952, leaving her mother to marry someone else, and the family to move back to England. Boyd went to a number of convent boarding schools, including Egerton's St. Agnes and St. Michael Convent Boarding School. She finished school with 3 GCE O-Lev passes in 1961 and 1962. Boyd looked for independence in London, where she met a photographer's assistant by accident. While working as a shampoo girl at Elizabeth Arden's salon, she was discovered and began her career as a model. Despite being turned down at first because of her unusual looks, Boyd's persistence paid off as she started to get noticed for her striking features and natural ability to embody the spirit of 1960 seconds fashion by the mid-1960s. Boyd was one of the most sought-after models of the time, and her pictures were in Vogue Elle and Vanity Fair. She was pretty, with long hair, big eyes, and the charm of youth. Boyd's work with famous photographers like David Bailey and Terence Donovan established her reputation in the 1960 seconds, the swinging 60s. Bohemian chic with a mod touch was seen as sophisticated and grown-up at the time. She even started an eminent designer on the path to fame. Ozzie Clarke named a few of his works after singer Boyd, whose relationship with George Harrison was troubled. Boyd made her big break in fashion during the British invasion, which made her a key figure in the 1960 seconds cultural revolution. She was the young, vivacious person who bridged the gap between dress and music. The spirit of a protest. Boyd's life changed forever when she met George Harrison while filming A Hard Day's Night in 1964. At the time, Boyd was in a relationship with someone else, but she was instantly drawn to Harrison's personality, and they quickly became engaged. They got married on the 21st of January, 1966, and Boyd was at the center of Beatlemania and all the chaos that came with being married to a Beatle. Harrison was deeply affected by Boyd's actions, and songs like Something and For You Blue were written to express their feelings. Still, their marriage, which was based on Milo's lively culture in the 1960 seconds, had a lot of problems. Harrison's growing interest in Eastern spirituality and meditation initially brought them together, but it later caused problems in their relationship. Harrison's spiritual journey began in earnest in the mid-1960s, when he became interested in Indian music and philosophy through his friendship with Ravi Shankar and his learning to play the sitar. Boyd joined him on this path and went to India with him in 1966. There, they learned about Eastern mysticism, meditated, and read spiritual texts. They also went to Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's lectures and immersed themselves in Eastern spirituality. Boyd later said that this time was like school, where they soaked up everything and shared a deep experience that at first strengthened their bond in the chaos of fame. But as Harrison's devotion to faith grew, tensions began to show. Boyd backed his pursuits, but he felt pushed to the side as he became more active with the Hare Krishna movement and spent more time on his spiritual life. Community. She struggled with her role in their relationship becoming less important. She later thought about how alone she felt and how much she wanted to have a purpose in her life. Besides having to deal with being the little wife who stayed at home, Harrison's extramarital affairs made their marriage even worse. Boyd said he was a hot-blooded boy who liked the attention women gave him, which was made possible by his fame. Even though Harrison's flirtations were often seen as harmless by other people, Boyd saw Harrison's flirtations as an uncomfortable confirmation of his desire, which made her feel unsafe and ignored as they turned into full-blown affairs. Boyd felt even more alone emotionally. The worst betrayal happened when Boyd found out that Harrison was having an affair with Maureen Starkey, who was married to Ringo Starr. This scandal not only broke Boyd, but it also caused ties within the Beatles to fray. Boyd talked about how humiliated she was when she found out. Maureen was at their house sleeping on a mattress, while Harrison waved her off as unimportant. The event was a turning point in Boyd's struggle to understand how to love Harrison when he had been cheating on her with other women. Harrison's actions made Boyd think deeply about her own feelings of betrayal and low self-worth as she thought about the marriage she later revealed she was in. I had to leave George because things were getting out of hand. He wanted to fly solo and try to make the most of being the good-looking, famous, and wealthy guy. Harrison's affairs not only made her lose trust in him, but they also made the emotional distance created by his spiritual pursuits even clearer. While Boyd initially supported his journey into Eastern spirituality, it eventually turned into a source of alienation as his devotion grew and left her out, making her even more upset. Boyd quit her job as a model because Harrison told her to, thinking it would make their relationship easier. Instead, the choice made things worse. Made her feel empty and stuck in the part of the little wife who stays at home and watches Harrison alone. Embrace a way of life that didn't meet her emotional needs, made Boyd question who she was and what she was here for. Harrison thrived at social events that made her feel like an outsider in her own marriage in 1971. Boyd made a big step toward reclaiming her independence when she returned to modeling and debuted her comeback at an Ozzie Clark fashion show. This decision showed how strong she was and changed the course of her life after years of giving up her own goals in marriage. Clashed with Harrison's spiritual beliefs, and Harrison thought her job as a model went against his beliefs. Boyd saw it as a way to express himself creatively and find happiness. Harrison's cheating and emotional distance made things worse between them and led to the end of their marriage during this difficult time. Boyd also tried photography, which became an important way for her to express her creativity. She photographed moments from her life and the exciting world around her, capturing the essence of the rock and roll era. Boyd's photography not only helped her deal with her problems by letting her express herself, but it has also become a celebrated part of her legacy through exhibitions and publications. Boyd's work, which gave personal peeks into her life and the culture of the 160 seconds and the 1970 seconds, made her famous as an artist. In addition to her roles as a model and muse, Boyd and Harrison ended their 8-year marriage in 1974, after the rift between them became fully hostile. Boyd has said that the decision was very hard, and that their relationship had reached its breaking point because of Harrison's actions before they broke up and their inability to connect emotionally. However, Boyd had already met Eric Clapton, which marked the start of a new and equally difficult chapter in her life. To fully understand Eric Clapton's relationship with Boyd, it's important to look at his relationship with Alice Ormsby Gore. Clapton met Ormsby Gore at a party in Chelsea, London, when he was only 17. Ormsby Gore was drawn to Clapton's fame and charisma, and their passionate romance quickly blossomed. However, their relationship was marked by turbulence, mostly because Clapton was obsessed with Boyd, who was married to Harrison at the time. This obsession caused Clapton and Ormsby Gore to break up and get back together many times. And to make things even more complicated, both Clapton and Ormsby Gore started abusing drugs while they were together, most notably heroin. Clapton later admitted that his addiction ruled their relationship, calling it one of isolation and instability. Gore, who was deeply in love with Clapton, found herself trapped in a cycle of supporting his drug use, even running errands to get drugs for him despite how much she loved him. Clapton himself admitted that their relationship was based more on dependence than real love, which was an imbalance that caused them to split up in the end. During this time of trouble, Eric Clapton's feelings for Pattie Boyd grew stronger, which led to a short but troubled relationship with her younger sister Paula Boyd. Paula Boyd was born on the 14th of March, 1951. Kenya was known in Nairobi for being beautiful and for being the sister of Pattie, who was married to George Harrison of the Beatles. Clapton and Paula started dating in December 1969. Clapton was immediately smitten by Paula's beauty after Pattie introduced them after a concert in Liverpool. On their first date, they spent the evening dancing and getting to know each other. Their relationship quickly grew, and Paula moved in with Clapton at his home in Hurtwood. Edge Surrey, on the other hand, even though the rock star life is fun, the relationship was overshadowed by Clapton's ongoing mental turmoil, because he was deeply in love with someone else. Clapton was see-through with Paula while dating Pattie, but his heart stayed with Pattie. His deep love for her was so strong that it came out in his music, most famously in the song which showed how deeply he felt about Layla. This emotional conflict caused problems in his relationship with Paula because Clapton kept writing letters to Pattie about how he felt about her, even though she was with her sister in Wonderful Tonight. Pattie talks about how Clapton's letters to her showed how hard it was for him to love someone who didn't love him back. By March 1970, Clapton's obsession with Pattie made the problems in his relationship with Paula too great to handle. Clapton wrote Pattie, who is now married to George Harrison, a letter about his inner turmoil over his emotional conflict. Clapton's home life was getting worse, and the letter showed how desperately he wanted Pattie. It was impossible to ignore, and as the months went by, it became clear that Clapton's feelings for Pattie were stronger than his feelings for Paula, even though he was seriously in love with Clap. Paula began to understand that she was only there to fill in for Pattie when she wasn't available. This understanding came to a full conclusion. While Clapton was recording in Miami, people paid attention. There, Paula found out that Layla got the idea for her song from her sister, which made her feel even worse. As Paula dealt with the painful truth that Clapton's heart belonged to someone else, her pride and self-esteem began to slip. Eventually, Clapton and Paula's relationship ended as his feelings for Pattie reached their peak. Their breakup was a turning point for both of them, as Clapton began his search for a relationship with Pattie Boyd. After the end of his relationship with Paula, Clapton continued to struggle with his feelings about both sisters, but his connection to Pattie grew stronger, as they figured out how to be faithful and in love in the dangerous world of rock and roll fame for Paula. The experience left her with deep emotional scars. She loved Clapton, but she always felt like her sister was more important in their lives. Later, Pattie Boyd thought back on this troubled time and admitted that it had an emotional impact on her. She knew that Clapton had once been deeply in love with Paula, but it was clear that he could not be with her anymore. Get away from his feelings for her sister. This situation brought up the difficulties of personal life people face when they're involved in fame, where love is often desire, jealousy, and unfulfilled longing make things more difficult. Eric Clapton's troubled relationship with Pattie Boyd. Even after they broke up, Clapton never gave up on trying to get Pattie. He wrote her several honest love letters in which he asked her if she still loved her husband, or if she had another lover. Boyd was trying to figure out how to handle her troubled marriage at the time of this letter. George Harrison was dealing with Clapton's growing feelings for Pattie. The emotional fallout was big. At first, she decided to stay loyal to Harrison even though she felt the same way about Clapton. But as her marriage fell apart because of Harrison's affairs and drug abuse, she changed her mind. She was more interested in Clapton's constant love and mental support, Pattie thought. Clapton, who had been after Pattie for a long time, stepped up his efforts in 1970 by visiting her more often and giving her all the attention she needed from her husband, who was becoming less close to her. Clapton is known for telling Harrison, "You and your wife are friends, but I have to tell you that I love your wife." Clapton's feelings were also shown in the songs Wonderful Tonight and Layla, which he wrote about Pattie and the times they spent together in 1974, after she broke up with Harrison. Pattie Boyd was at a crossroads. Clapton had been after her for a long time while she was married, but now it seemed like a better time to be with him. They started dating soon after her divorce was finalized in 1977, and their relationship turned into a passionate romance. On the 27th of March 1979, they got married in Tucson, Arizona. It's interesting that George Harrison went to their wedding and joked that he was their husband-in-law, which showed that he was friendly with Clapton despite their troubled past. However, after the initial happiness, Clapton and Boyd's marriage had a lot of problems. They had a hard time together because Clapton kept having problems with alcoholism and drug abuse. His drinking problems were said to have caused problems in their relationship, which made her very upset and made her own drinking problems worse. Boyd later thought about how hard it was to keep their relationship stable. During Clapton's own struggles with drug abuse during her marriage to Clapton, Pattie Boyd also had emotional problems related to having children. Clapton had long said he wanted to have children with her, and they tried several times to have children through in vitro fertilization, IVF. Boyd was unable to get pregnant. She has said that the process was hard on her emotions because each failed attempt made her feel more lost and angry. The idea of becoming a mother seemed out of reach, and these unfulfilled hopes put more stress on their marriage. Clapton was there for them during the IVF process and encouraged them. As Boyd and his partner tried to have children, these mental problems and his own personal problems became too much for their relationship to handle. Things went in a terrible direction. When Boyd found out Clapton was cheating on his wife in 1985, Clapton had 2 children with other women, a daughter named Ruth with Kelly and a son named Connor with Lori Del Santo, in 1986. Boyd found out about Ruth after they split up in 1988, but she learned about Connor while she was still married to Clapton. This news broke Boyd's heart, especially since she was going through the emotional pain of IVF treatments at the time. Boyd's trust in Clapton was reportedly tested by his extramarital affairs, which happened at the same time as her own emotional struggles with motherhood. She had hoped to start a family with him, but his actions made it clear that he was looking for happiness outside of their marriage. Even though her marriage had already ended, this betrayal made her feelings worse and made her question her own worth. Boyd thought about how she had lost her sense of who she was. She felt like her relationships with famous artists made her who she was, and she wondered, am I no longer who I am? Now that she is no longer married to Clapton, 1989, she is no longer Mrs. Famous George or Mrs. Famous Eric. Boyd went to therapy to work through the mental pain from both of her marriages and to get back to knowing who she was. To help her heal, she turned to photography and writing, which helped her to find out who she was outside of being a mother and her relationships with famous musicians. Boyd's photography eventually got her noticed, and exhibitions around the world helped her establish herself as an artist in her own right. Her influence went beyond the music and fashion worlds, and she became a cultural icon that represented the freedom and individuality of the 1960s. Individual style and an eye for beauty helped. What does the age and fashion icon mean? Mary Quant said that women should try to look like Boyd instead of traditional glamour icons like Marlene Dietrich. Boyd's contributions to fashion, especially as a symbol of 1960s style, are still felt by people of all ages in 2007. Boyd wrote a story called Wonderful Tonight. George Harrison, Eric Clapton, and Me. The book gives an honest look into her personal and work life. Journey shed light on her time as a model and muse for both Harrison and Clapton. It was a worldwide bestseller and showed how complicated her relationships were with 2 of rock music's biggest stars. Stories through this memoir. After moving past the stories that had long shaped her life and career, Boyd reclaimed her voice and her identity. Now, let's talk about the life of George Harrison. He was born in Liverpool on the 25th of February, 1943. His Irish roots came from a working-class Catholic family. He was the youngest of 4 children and was inspired by his mother's singing and his father's record collection when he was 14. He bought his very first guitar. Harrison's musical journey began when he joined a skiffle group and later met Paul McCartney at a school meeting. This led to Harrison joining the Quarrymen, the band that came before the Beatles. He was praised as an innovative guitarist and a songwriter. Some of Harrison's most famous works are Something Here Comes the Sun and While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Gently Weeps is a song that mixes rock and Indian music styles. Something got a lot of attention praise, including praise from Frank Sinatra, who called it the best love story song from the last 50 years. He covered the song because he liked it so much. Harrison had very mixed views about these covers, even though they showed the song's emotional depth and timeless appeal twice. He was thankful for the praise, but he thought that opinions like these changed the original meaning of his work and showed his desire for artistic integrity. This, along with Here Comes the Sun, was the turning point in Harrison's career, establishing him as an equal songwriter among the Beatles. The love messages in this song are universally appealing, which has earned it a place in the annals of time and praise from other greats. Focus on Eric Clapton. Eric was born on the 30th of March, 1945, in Ripley, Sur, England. He was the illegitimate child of Patricia Molly and Edward Walter Fryer. Clapton had a very hard childhood. His father left his mother when he was a baby and he lived with his maternal grandparents, thinking they were his parents the whole time. During such a rough time in his life, these emotional setbacks really hurt him. Clapton was good at art and music. His love of American blues music, inspired by artists like B.B. King and Muddy Waters, drove him to make music his full-time job, and he dropped out of Kingston College of Art in 1961. He started out in music by playing in a few different bands, like the Roosters, Casey Jones, and the Engineers before getting his first taste of fame with the Yardbirds in 1963. His guitar playing was so unique that people started calling him Slow Hand. This set him up for many future successes in rock music. After leaving the Yardbirds, Clapton joined John Ma and the Blues Breakers, which added to his reputation as a great blues guitarist. In 1966, he co-founded the band Cream with bassist Jack Bruce and drummer Ginger Baker. Cream was a brilliant mix of rock and blues, and songs like Sunshine of Your Love and Crossroads made Clapton a superstar. Before they broke, Eric Clapton and Steve Winwood formed the supergroup Blind Faith, but the band broke up after only releasing one album. He started his solo career in 1970 with the album Eric Clapton. His famous work with Derek and the Dominoes produced the timeless hit Timeless. Layla Clapton's 1974 album, 461 Boulevard, marked a shift toward more melodic songwriting, with the hit Timeless being a big example. In the 1970 seconds and 1980 seconds, I Shot the Sheriff. Eric Clapton solidified his reputation with a series of hit records, such as Slow Hand and Unplugged, the latter of which included Tears in Heaven. A very moving tribute to his late son. Clapton's ability to work across styles has made him one of the most popular artists of all time and kept him up to date across generations. His work with other artists, especially George Harrison, shows how versatile and influential he was. Eric Clapton and George Harrison worked together creatively in the late 1960 seconds. Clapton and Harrison formed a creative partnership during a tough time for both musicians. Their friendship, which began when Clapton met the Beatles in 1964, reached a peak with Clapton's famous guitar solo on Harrison's White Album track. Harrison made Clapton play While My Guitar Gently Weeps, even though Clapton didn't want to at first, which was an important moment in music. Clapton became an important part of Harrison's creative projects after this, contributing to the Wonderwall music soundtrack and lending his skills to the landmark album All Things Must Pass. The two even co-wrote Badge for Cream's final album, which shows how well they worked together musically and how much they respected each other. Their friendship went beyond the studio, as Harrison sought emotional support during difficult times in his personal life, such as his struggles with the Beatles and his troubled marriage. While Harrison's collaborations with Clapton were going well, he was also pursuing his own artistic career. Harrison tried to find his own identity in the Beatles, where he was often overshadowed by John Lennon and Paul McCartney. By 1966, he had embraced Indian music and spirituality, introducing new instruments like the sitar into Western pop music with songs like Norwegian Wood and This Bird Has Flew. This change helped Harrison go beyond the limits of traditional rock music and create a more personal and sophisticated sound through his use of tones that don't resolve. The Noise Goes Up and slide guitar turned into Harrison's style was characterized by works like Here Comes the Sun, which combined emotional depth with technical brilliance. This was the conclusion of Harrison's desire for. With his solo business after the Beatles, he gained freedom. His first solo record, Wonderwall Music, which came out in 1968 as the soundtrack for the movie directed by Joe Massette, was a big hit and a big change from the sound of the Beatles. Harrison was exploring Indian music and becoming more interested in combining Eastern and Western musical traditions. This album had a huge variety of instrumental tracks, ranging from Indian classical to Western rock. Harrison's groundbreaking work with the Cider was a great example of this. The album was praised by critics as a beautiful mix of Indian and Western sounds that made Harrison one of the first artists to bring Indian music to the West. While it wasn't a big hit in the UK, Wonderwall music did surprisingly well in the US, reaching number 49 on the Billboard charts and staying there for an impressive 16 weeks. Run the sound of the album and Harrison's fame as a member of the Beatles may have helped spark interest in it at first, but it didn't do very well on the charts. Over the years, people's views on Wonderwall music have changed. For example, recent reviews have ranged from praising the album's creativity to calling it mainly an album for die-hard fans. Rolling Stone said it was creative. Others said it might only appeal to Harrison fans who already knew his work. But now that it's over, many see it as an important step in Harrison's career that shows he's willing to try new things and break away from traditional rock norms. The music from Wonderwall lives on. After it came out, it is often used as an early example of what would later be called world music, and it has influenced many singers who have tried to mix different kinds of music. Traditions that some critics have pointed out Harrison's effect on artists who want to mix different kinds of music. Traditions place him next to other important people. Harrison's next album, the landmark triple album, All Things Must Pass, released on the 27th of November, 1970, solidified his position as a solo artist even more. It was the first big project he worked on after the breakup of the Beatles and is widely regarded as his most important work, combining rock and pop themes with spirituality. The album shows how Harrison grew as a musician and songwriter. It has 3 discs, and the first 2 contain his original songs. On the third disc, Apple Jam, there are casual jam sessions with other musicians. Harrison and Phil Spector co-produced the album. Spector used his trademark wall of sound technique to great effect, giving the album its signature deep layering. Other artists who worked on the project included Clapton, Eric Clapton, Ringo Starr. In terms of music, Billy Preston and members of Badfinger and Delaney and Bonnie's Friends band. The album All Things Must Pass has rock, gospel, and Indian influences. The title track shows Harrison's philosophical view, and hits like My Sweet Lord and What Is Life show off his slide guitar skills and the depth of his lyrics. The album's themes are mostly about spirituality, love, and how short life is. All Things Must Pass was praised by everyone and sold a lot of copies. It was the first solo album by a former Beatle member to reach such heights, and the lead single, My Sweet Lord, also topped the charts around the world, solidifying Harrison as a solo artist. Critics praised the album for its ambitious scope and emotional depth. Rolling Stone called it Wagnerian in its grandeur and said it was a major artistic breakthrough for Harrison over time. Many people consider All Things Must Pass to be one of the best solo records by any Beatle and one of the best albums in rock history. It has had a huge impact on musicians. Harrison's growth as an artist after leaving the Beatles is reflected in Revelation, which is a career-defining work that explores themes of spirituality and self-discovery. What do you think about Pattie Boyd's revelation about her relationship with Eric Clapton? Leave a comment below and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more videos.